Hello, YouTube. This is Zach, and I tell you what, there is nothing like coming home from a long day at work, teaching music, teaching voice, which is obviously something that I love. But I get home and I pull up my YouTube channel just to see how things are going. I'm greeted with a really nice, hearty kill yourself. I tell you what, there's no greater feeling in the world. So today I'm going to be exploring some of the finer, more intricate remarks that my precious viewers have provided me since I've begun this channel. But first, before we do that, a few days ago I asked for some of you to give me some questions, and so I could make a video that's in like a Q&A format, so I figured why not do both. I'm going to answer a few questions that some of you guys left for me, some great questions by the way, and then after that we're going to have some fun and take a look at some of these rather ridiculous remarks. That was alliteration, and I totally did not mean to do that. All right, so I'm going to start it right out. First question is from Imperator Morbidosa. I hope I got that right. This is a big, long question, so let's see here. Is it ever too late to begin learning or training to sing? People that sing in 10 different styles, is that a good idea in the long run or doesn't matter at all? Do you think it's more impressive to be a jack-of-all-trades singer, to have exceptional skill in a single style? Are there any subtle, under-the-radar exercises someone could do in public to improve any area of singing, i.e. breathing exercises or sounds, ways to practice easing tension in the neck or jaw, etc.? What are some of the most nonsensical exercises you've seen self-style vocal coaches promote, and why don't they make sense? No need to mention names if you decide to answer, but what fun would that be? Are there any singers aside from raspy or screamer types that you will not ever talk about or analyze? If so, why not? It's a lot of questions, so let me see what I can figure out here. Is it ever late to begin learning or training to sing? Yes and no. If your voice is healthy, no. If your voice is not healthy, yes. For example, I had a middle-aged man who came into my studio at work one time, who used to work at a factory, and he did a lot of shouting over the work that was going on because he was like the foreman or something. I don't remember exactly what it was. So I heard this thing in his voice that had this like creak, this crackly sound. It's not like a raspy singer sound. It was like this, like his folds weren't fully closing sound. I immediately told him, hey, I'm not a doctor, but I strongly suggest for you to go to an ENT and get checked out. And it turned out that he had developed a major nodule on his folds, and he was old enough to where it probably wasn't even going to benefit him to remove it. So in his case, he decided not to do voice lessons just because there was only so much he was going to gain from it. And he'd rather just do what he could do on his own and not spend money on something where he was, unless he got the surgery, probably wouldn't benefit him very much. And even if it did, it'd be, diminishing returns potentially. People that sing in 10 different styles, is that a good idea in the long run or doesn't matter at all? That's a tough one. It really depends. I mean, there's a lot of different styles of classical singing, and just because you do one, it doesn't mean that you're good at all of them. So I honestly suggest that everyone become as diverse of singers as they can be, and I'm a hypocrite in that sense because I kind of have a limited skill set. I'm very good at singing in a classical style, but you put me into a pop setting and I try to apply my classical technique to it, and it's really hard because I always sound like I'm singing at the other side of a room. So, it depends. I would say that it's a good idea to get experience with as much as you can. Is it more impressive to be a decent jack of all trades or to have exceptional skill in a single style? That's totally subjective. If you're going to be in classical music, then you need to be exceptional at your fach, at your like one specific thing that you do. So I would say that it depends on the environment. Subtle under the radar exercise you can do in public, not singing wise, because typically when you're warming up, you want to like sing on the voice and get full chord closure, and you don't want to be doing this thing to be quiet. You can do some breathing exercises. Like one thing I like to do, and I tell my students to do this all the time, is put your hand in front of your face and hiss, like put it like about that far from your face and hiss. And if you can't feel any air on your hand, then you're using the right amount of air to sing. So that's a little thing you can do in public if you don't mind, making people think you're John Cena or something everywhere you go. What are the most nonsensical exercises you've seen self-style vocal coaches promote, and why don't they make sense? Oh, putting a tongue depressor on your tongue to flatten it out to open your throat. Opening your throat involves expansion of the vocal tract, which involves the lowering of the larynx. Has nothing to do with your tongue. Your tongue shouldn't be flat when you sing anyway, because The tongue position is what helps shape the sound of the vowel you create. So that's a pretty ridiculous one, and I'm sure you all know where that comes from. Are there any singers that you will not talk about and analyze? No more Nightwish. Ever. I will never analyze another Nightwish singer ever again, unless someone like donated like $500 on my Patreon or more and was like, please, please, please analyze this. I am not putting myself through that again. The next question is from Coda. Could you recommend us a good YouTube vocal coach? You talked about most of them being bad, so I don't know what channel to follow. Well, okay, in all fairness, there's a lot of really bad stuff on YouTube. So I appreciate you listening to what I have to say, but there are a few good ones that I found. Lenore Oren, I really, really like her content. She's got it going on. It's all coming from a good place. She knows what she's talking about. Her examples are excellent. Her commentary on singers is excellent. Really good stuff. I've spoken with her like through a comment. Nothing super major, but I would love to interface with her and do something like together in terms of commentary or analysis, because I really respect what she's doing. And then Michael Trimble, he's an older guy. He's a former stage singer. He had a vocal injury, and I think his career kind of ended after that point. But when you listen to his material, I say listen with an open mind, because we use different terminology for things, but I like the sound he gets out of his students, and I like the way that he goes about getting the sound out. He refers to certain things in different ways than I do, but I can tell by the way that he teaches we're in the same kind of ballpark. So Lenore Oren, Michael Trimble, and honestly, I actually spoke with Tristan Paredes about a month and a half ago, and we had a really, really long conversation, and he's cleaned up his act quite a bit, but nowadays he's kind of going more into like the pop culture sort of deal. But I've heard enough from him to believe that he actually kind of knows what he's talking about. He just, for a long time, was trying to be more of a provocateur than an educator, and now he's more into entertainment. So he stopped giving lessons because he doesn't really want to be a teacher. But I can say that when he talks about pedagogy, it's a more contemporary perspective, but he does know about the voice. And he actually has a lot of really good resources with regards to the people that he communicates with. There's a lot of people that are into linguistics that he's really close with, that I've spoken with personally. So I would say I've kind of doubled back on my perspective on Tristan a little bit. He's actually not that bad. Some of the things that he said in his like BS series were pretty irresponsible, but he's taken all that down as well. So good on him for that. I would say he's not the worst on YouTube by any stretch. Is what is referred to as belting in contemporary pop music actually sustainable and healthy? This is from Martina Zero Sun. You know, that's one of those things where belting is like compression. I hear so many different definitions of what belting is that I can't even answer that question. If it requires you to push harder than your vocal folds need to work, and if it makes your muscles around your throat operate in a way that they're overexerting themselves, then no, it's not sustainable and healthy. If you can belt in a way that doesn't do that, then I mean, I'm gonna throw a bone out there and say it's probably okay. Nick Davis asks, who inspired you to start singing, and do you still look up to them? Well, that's a great question, because I've been singing since I was like 3. My mom told me that I used to carry on this Little Tikes tape player, and I'd listen to Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd on repeat, like over and over and over, and sing it. And it got to the point to where she had to like hide it from me, because I just sung all the time. I was on the radio, a local radio station, when I was 5 or 6. I sung Hound Dog by Elvis. But, I mean, you know, I've been singing my whole life. And I didn't get any formal training until I was like 16, 17. But if I had to pick one person that first inspired me to sing, it was my high school choir teacher, Miss Valerie Flamini. She's the one who got me to try out for All-State Choir, and All-State Choir changed my life. It was what showed me that I wanted to be a musician for the rest of my life. And true story, I barely passed the audition for All-State because I didn't even really know what it was. I didn't really prepare for it. I just kind of went in and was like, let's see what happens. And I guess just off of sheer luck and like the scoring being kind of lenient that year, I made it. And so from that point on, I was like, I'm never going to miss All-State again. I'm going to go to All-State every time. So All-State freshman year, Miss Flamini, my high school choir teacher, was probably my biggest singing influence. I haven't heard from her in a long time. She's a Facebook friend of mine, but I haven't spoken with her a whole lot. But I mean, of course, I still look up to her. I mean, how could I not? Her passion and her love for music was infectious, and it really carried over to everyone that she was around. Claire KG asks 4 questions. Which contemporary singers do you think had the healthiest technique? Could be from any genre, doesn't need to be from rock or metal. Kurt Elling in jazz, his technique's okay. He has a lot of facial tension, but the way he creates sound is not the end of the world. Terrible, unhealthy. I think Michael Ockerfeldt of Opeth, when he does straight clean vocals, is generally okay. It doesn't seem too pushed or too forced, so it's probably okay. Is there a singer I'm a fan of in terms of vocal tone or music, but they have questionable technique? Daniel Gildenlow, Pain of Salvation, for sure. I love how expressive he is, and I love his vocal colors. But, I mean, he's already shown some signs of vocal decline. He certainly doesn't have the range that he used to, and he's in his 40s. I mean, he pushed himself really hard in his younger days, and I think that it's coming back to bite him now. But I love the way he writes music. I love his singing sound. I love basically everything about his musicianship. Biggest misconceptions that the average person has about vocal technique. The biggest misconception that people have is that if it sounds good, it's good technique. That's completely wrong. Lots of people don't even know what vocal technique is. If you ask them to define technique, they stutter and they just stop. Well, it sounds good to me. Technique is really how efficiently your voice operates, and most people can't even define that. It's something that you kind of have to study. So the biggest misconception is that good sound equals good technique. When you analyze a singer for the first time and you're not familiar with them, what are the first things you look out for? The timbre. The timbre of the sound determines what's going on physically. So if I hear a specific timbre, like if I hear someone that sounds like they're singing through their nose, well, that means that they have nasal resonance, which probably means that they're using high laryngeal position when they sing. It's just a kind of thing that I'm kind of taught to listen out for example, but it's the timbre first, because the sound determines the sound within the sound, if that makes sense. Kalquiza asks, do you think some people have a voice that naturally fits a certain style, or can anyone or most people learn to sing a style they prefer? I don't know. That's a tough one. My voice is definitely suited to be on the stage in a non-mic'd setting, because when I sing into a microphone, I sound like a cannon, and I peak microphones out all the time, that kind of thing. So I find it very difficult to sing in a setting that isn't non-mic'd. Could I do it? Probably, but I mean, I'm definitely more in my own wheelhouse on stage, unmiked, and I always have been. So I'm going to say that if you can sing, singing technique, you can probably fit anywhere, but everyone's voice is probably better attuned to specific sounds. But then again, you've got the whole thing of like genre and what fits where is like this human construct sort of deal. So, I mean, that's kind of a subjective variable question. Tarmo Tyree asks, what are the biggest non-healthy flaws in a singer's way of singing that are guaranteed to cause vocal problems rather sooner or later? Glottal onsets and using too much air. No question. Noah Millen asks, is baritone an actual term, and what does it even mean? Is it some sort of a middle ground between a baritone and a tenor, or is there something else to it? Okay. There is no middle ground between a baritone and a tenor. You go from a baritone to a tenor. Baritenor is a made-up term that some people like at the Range Place or one of those like voice coaches on YouTube or somebody came up with as a buzzword because they don't know how to describe a singer that has a wider range. That's why we have the Fox system. But even further beyond that, if you're not a classical singer, it doesn't even matter that much. Just write what music fits your voice well. Write melodies that fit well. It doesn't matter your voice type. The only reason that voice classification exists is for composers. It tells composers what kind of ranges to compose in for certain voice types. It lets them know what kinds of sounds to expect out of certain voice types. For example, I'm a bass baritone, which means that if I want to do opera, I'm probably going to have a villain role. It kind of lets people know what to expect in terms of range and timbre. Outside of classical, it has almost no practical use. Baritenor is not a Fach. Go on Wikipedia and look up the list of Fach, and you will see that baritenor is not there anywhere. Wargagramsci, 105 maybe? Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Sometimes people can't accept being ignorant about things, so they get defensive when corrected by someone that knows more instead of actually learning. How do you deal with these people? I'm still learning to deal with those people. It's very difficult because I've gone into this with completely good intentions. I just want to help people. I want to help people learn, and I want to counterbalance some of the really poor internet commentary on the voice that's out there with something that I know has some like legitimate science behind it and something that I trust based on my education and the people who taught me I greatly trust. I want to share that. And so it's hard for me to see people cutting me down when I know what my intentions are. It really depends on the kind of comment they leave. Sometimes I just ignore it, and sometimes I tell them exactly why they're wrong, whether that means they snipe back at me or not. I at least want the other people who look at the comments who are looking to learn can see why this person's logic is incorrect. CC asks, how to know when a singer is using bel canto and when is not? Ask yourself this question. Are they using a microphone? If the answer is yes, they're not singing bel canto. If The answer is no. Ask them what repertoire they're singing. If it's classical, then yes, they're probably using bel canto. If it's not classical, then no, they're probably not using bel canto. Anyone who claims to use bel canto and then sings into a microphone is a liar, unless they are a bel canto singer that specializes in bel canto that happens to be doing a one-off performance where they're singing an operatic piece with a microphone. Very rare does that happen, but it does. If you're singing into a microphone and you're using the microphone as a method of enhancing your voice, it's not bel canto. MG asks, how do you balance school and singing and performing? I didn't. I did a very poor job of that. I developed a vocal injury because I overworked my voice. If I could go back and tell my 22, 23, 24-year-old Zach what to do differently, I'd say pace yourself. And I know you want to do everything, but you've got to give your voice a break. Me getting voice therapy is probably what got me so focused on this whole vocal health concept. Great questions, everybody. Thank you so much. Those are awesome. And I hope that I gave you some sufficient answers. And now, time for the top 10 worst comments. Now, I define worst comments as all sorts of different things, from people just having misconceptions about the things that I'm advocating, or people just being flat out rude, to just really weird stuff. Some of these comments are going to be generalized. Some of them are going to be not so generalized, just because I get some of them so redundantly that I figure it's a perfect time to address them here. So the first comment I'm going to go ahead and address, since I get it so much, is shut the F up. You talk too long. This is why you don't have as many subscribers as the other vocal coach channels. Okay, first off, I'm not a dancing monkey. I know that you're coming on YouTube to be entertained, but I am not your personal, private little funny bot. I don't do that. I'm here to teach. I'm not here to entertain. If you don't like my approach to education, kindly go somewhere else. There are lots of voice coaches on YouTube that will make you laugh, make you smile. You can cry along with them, whatever you want to do to please your little emotionally driven heart to its greatest content. So go do that. Next comment I get all the time. This is another generalized. Stop pausing the video so much. It's distracting. I just want to rock out to the song. Buy me the license to the song and I will play it straight through from start to finish. Until then, shut up. Comment number 3, another generalized one. Well, this singer streamed for 40 years, so he did it, and that means that you're wrong. No, that's called an anecdote. An anecdote is an example of someone doing something based upon their own account and accord. You cannot prove that this singer who sung with rasp for 4 decades did no vocal damage to themselves, and you also can't prove that they did not have a performance degradation in any kind of way. Even if they did have a consistent career through that entire time, that's wonderful, and I'm glad and I'd love to study that person in depth. That doesn't mean that one case accounts for everyone. I can guarantee you that we can get into a little game where you list one person who does screaming and rasp for a full career, and I can name you 2 people who weren't able to do it for a whole career, and we can go on as long as you want. Comment number 4. Who is Zach Ansley? He's a 32-year-old amateur singer who flaps his yap on YouTube. Who is Ronnie James Dio? He's Ronnie James Dio. The notion of the former critiquing the latter is analogous to Colonel Sanders fine-tuning George Patton's North African deployments and flanking maneuvers. Okay, you're completely wrong about this. Every single singer that has ever sung in any kind of professional setting has gotten the advice of other professionals. And anyone who says that they haven't is a liar. You have to, whether it's just for vocal maintenance or to build your technique, anything like that. People hire professionals. I work with a few high-profile people right now. And you know what? They don't go around flaunting my name around everyone because that's not how it works. Being a teacher means that you accept that you're not going to be able to name drop very much, and people aren't going to name drop you very much. It's a big deal if someone's like, hey, Zach Ansley's this great voice teacher, check him out. But I don't expect people to do that. So I'm a professional. This is what I do for a living. Outside of YouTube, I'm not just some talking face on YouTube. I actually do this professionally. So it would not matter who did or did not come into my voice studio. If Dio came into my studio, I would teach him the exact same way that I would teach a 6-year-old that's just learning the fundamentals of singing. I would take the same objectivity and the same approach to it, and I would not put them on the pedestal just because of their name. Comment number whatever, I think 5. I think we're on 5 now. Your credentials, such as they are, bring to mind the adage, those who cannot do, teach. Critiquing Dio was a stupid thing to do. The ego prerequisite such an undertaking is repellent. One imagines the calisthenics instructor at the Atlanta Recreational Jogging Academy pointing out flaws in Usain Bolt's technique. Did you think you'd profit by taking shots at a veritable metal god? You poor ignorant fool. You might as well have posted a drawing of Mohammed in blackface eating a BLT. Okay, first off, Dio, name aside, is not a god. I'm not going to get into a religious discussion here because it's not the time or place for it. But I will say that no human is God, no matter how much you deify the individual in your own head. That alone shows me, when you make those kinds of comments, that you are not capable of thinking rationally about the very things you're saying. Dio was an incredible singer. He was a human being, though. And by being a human being, he is held to the same standards that other human beings are. And do you know how educated voice teachers hold standards? By academia. We look at academia to determine what people are doing with their voices. Dio would be no different if he came into a voice teacher studio. Saying that those who cannot do, teach, or whatever the phrase is, saying that is false. I can do, but I don't do. I did for 7 years of college. And by the time I was out of college, I was sick of it. I got tired of performing. And I have not gotten over that since then. Maybe in a few years I'll feel like performing again. But for me, it's far more fulfilling to teach people than it is to go out and perform. But I can do. What do you want me to do? Do you want me to sing an aria? What do you want me to do? You want me to keep going? I could sing for you all day. But I don't sit here and make this channel about my beautiful singing voice because that's narcissistic and it defies the entire concept of vocal education, which is what I'm here to do. So shut up. You say that the place that I work is the equivalent of someone helping Usain Bolt with his running technique. Let me ask you a really simple question, and all of you watching this. Without Googling it, can you tell me who Pavarotti's voice teacher was? Didn't think so. Maybe one or two of you could. Most of you can't. There's a reason for this. Use your brain before you speak or type. Thanks to the people in the Discord server for finding this one. There is no such thing as objectively healthy or objectively unhealthy singing. Measurements don't mean anything. You cannot put the human voice into a box and label stuff because there are various shades of voices. Wouldn't you say calling voices different shades a label? Like, if you're going to say that the voice has lots of different shades, which it does, would you not label that sound as something? What are you trying to say here? Measurements don't mean anything? That's completely untrue. Measurements matter because that's why you don't give a coloratura soprano a piece for a basso profundo. Think about this. And yes, there is a such thing as objectively healthy and objectively unhealthy singing. Just in the same way that there is a such thing as objectively healthy and objectively unhealthy ways of speaking. It's all real. For you to deny it is just your own biases toward your favorite singer, Bjork in this particular case. I know you love this person, and I know you want to think that they're the greatest at everything in the world. But there's a lot of other fans of different singers who feel the exact same way that you do about their respective singers. So someone coming out and saying that this is objectively what someone's doing, this is healthy, this is not, these are the types of things that we train out of people's voices when you take voice lessons, does not mean that the singer's bad. It also doesn't validate your opinions or invalidate your opinion. All I'm saying is that these things are measurable conclusively, and for you to deny that is basically spitting in the face of well over 400 years of study on the voice. And if you have something you want to say about that, take it up with the National Association of Teachers of Singing, because they're the authority on the subject. I'm not even counting anymore. I think this is 9. I'm going to say it's 9 because this next one's just too good. I've got 2 comments left. This comes from someone who apparently is a hotshot here on YouTube, Mr. Hurtbox TV. Left me a nice pretty little message that says, Dio sang with rasp for over 4 decades, little to no damage with his voice. Shut the F up, Mr. Academic Soy Boy. all these guys sing healthy enough that they keep their voices healthy enough to preform hundreds of shows over many decades. All you do is yap on and on about F all nothing, nitpicking little BS that really, really doesn't effing matter. A lot of useless yapping. No wonder this S video is over 30 minutes long. Well, there's a lot wrong with that. You specialize in fighting games. And it just so happens to be that I spent a long time studying and playing fighting games. Am I the best fighting game player in the world? No, I really can't handle the stress of it. But I did learn enough about it to know that there are lots of little nitpicky things that you have to learn and understand about the game to be good at it. For example, frame data. You have to know when you press the Y button and they do their little punch thingy, how many frames that takes. And you have to know if you do that punch, is that amount of frames going to get you beaten if you do it, if they block it. You have to know these kinds of things. And there are tons of characters in fighting games. And to be able to play effectively, you have to know all this data about all these different characters. Does that matter in the grand scheme of life? Does it matter that you make a YouTube channel based on explaining and teaching people these things? Is that really important? Well, it's no different than what I'm doing here with singing. So you need to lay off. Just because you think that Dio is the greatest singer ever does not validate anything you have to say. Your position on the YouTube platform does not validate anything that you have to say. You have no idea what you are talking about. So I responded to him with something similar to this, and he just continued to call me a soy boy and got more aggressive and called me a retard. And, you know, this guy is like somewhat prevalent on YouTube. I think he has like 60,000 subscribers, so he's pretty well known. Yeah, this dude's apparently a class act, but, you know, one of the reasons I left fighting games is because the community is full of people like this. There's very few people in the fighting game community, outside of people I know personally, that I was really, really cool with knowing. Most of them were stuck-up, angry, bitter, belligerent jerks like this. And the number one comment, this one takes the cake. I mean, you will never find a better comment than this. So, our retard sits talking about a pro singing goddess like you got really anything to learn, floor, LOL. This is cry for views from a stupid beef.
Got him!
Okay, well, that's it. All those comments are gone. I'm not worried about them anymore. And if this makes you want to troll me even harder so you can get on another top 10 list that I do, then go for it. I don't even know if that was 10 or not. I don't even care. I'm just throwing them out there because you guys need to hear this kind of stuff that I get from these people all the time. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being here and listening to what I have to say. And I really appreciate that all of you that support me are interested in learning about this stuff, because you're really the reason that I do this at this point. If you all weren't here, I would have stopped doing this YouTube channel months ago, because these comments are hard to deal with. Like, it hurts seeing this stuff. And I know that people say, like, oh, don't let it get to you. Let it get to you. I know that. But it's not that easy. And I know for myself that when I was, not into YouTube, I was really judgmental of people on YouTube and public figures and things. And my channel's still really small, but just the amount that I've grown has shown me that, like, the public is brutal. The public's really, really brutal. And so I've had to really learn how to put this aside and not take these things too personally. It's really hard. So thank you for your support. Thank you for everything that you do and every way that you support me, every like you give, every comment you give. Thank you so much for it, because it is my motivation. Giving you content that helps you learn and helps you better understand all this stuff. It's helping me put my education to better use. So thank you. You all know I've got a Patreon. I give lessons, all that kind of stuff. I'm not going through that spiel here. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe if you haven't, if you enjoyed this. And I will see you all again on Tuesday, and I'll probably put up a poll about my next content sometime between now and then. Thanks. Bye.